At the start of the year, I implemented a new task and time management system, and it has transformed the way I work. So over the years, I ended up thinking of my inbox as a to-do list and, using the sort of read status as a way of seeing if I need to action something. And then I would accidentally mark emails as read, filter by unread, and then miss those. And emails would get completely missed and tasks would just get buried and never done. And then when I did try actually managing things in terms of to-do lists and with a proper system, like getting things done, all that would happen was unimportant tasks would end up growing and growing and growing and never get any attention and never get done. So there's this sort of fundamental problem of these two parts of the issue here that I've solved with the system I've put in place. So I'm going to be looking at the work of Mark Forster, who's basically an absolute legend, genius in terms of designing time management systems in a way that lets you process your to-do list so that everything on that list gets done. And this is just absolutely key, I think. And his work is truly amazing. If you're new to Mark Forster's work, you're going to have a whale of a time diving into his body of work. It's kind of buried on this forum on a sort of really old clunky website, and you have to wade through. But inside that, there are just gems, absolute gems. And he has published some books, and those are absolute gold as well. So piecing things together between the books and then what is on his sort of extended research kind of led forum and all the community on there as well. Absolutely incredible. So if you're new here, I'm Ben Valak and I'm a software developer, and I use this channel to use my developer mindset to kind of explore optimizing day-to-day workflows and routines. And recently this channel has changed directions a little bit. I want to make this more sort of talking about the direction of the channel from what I want to do. So I'm moving away from working with other partners and sponsors, and that means that the support of the members on this channel is more important than ever, and I really appreciate it. So if you do want to support what I'm doing, consider becoming a member here on YouTube. It's absolutely fantastic to see so many of you coming on board. Really appreciate it. So the inbound task process, basically, so obviously you've got your inbox, your email inbox. I think the first thing to do is consider the email inbox as your definitive way that people give you tasks. So your colleagues and your customers, you want to encourage this idea that they're sending you tasks via your inbox, not using live chat channels. I think live chat channels can be useful for kind of discussing a problem or discussing a particular project in real time with them, or even sort of less than real time, but it's not for new tasks because there's no easy way of actioning or marking at things as actioned in these live chat channels. So what I would normally do is just have this massive inbox and thousands of things would be unread, and I would literally have thousands of unread emails in my inbox, and I would sort of use the most recent ones as the to-do list, and it would just absolute disaster of an approach, really. So I knew that I had to get away from using the read status, the unread and the read status of an email as any kind of useful metric, because it was too easy to accidentally mark an email as read. It's not as useful a flag as it sort of makes you think it is. So what I've done is really simple, just a really, really simple system. But a lot of people actually overthink this, I think, and come up with really elaborate folder-based systems for dealing with emails. All I've simply done is for every account inbox, I've made a new folder on the server called Actioned, and I've named it based on the account. So I've got obviously several different email accounts for different kind of roles, and each one of those has got an actioned folder. Now, that's a folder, in the email account on the server. So it synchronizes to any device that I'm looking at. And basically all I do is I action every email. That's the basic principle. So the read status is largely irrelevant. I might just use it as a rough idea of whether I've read something or not. Sometimes I'll have a quick glance down the emails in the inbox and then come back to them, and I'll use the read status to kind of direct that process a little bit. But essentially, the read status is no longer that important. If the email is in the inbox, it means I have not taken any action on it. So I have to do something to each one. Now, obviously, a lot of those is just deleting, spam and marketing. Just delete them. Sometimes an email won't need a reply, in which case you can just move it straight into this actioned folder and it's done. But for anything that does need, if there's a task in the email, basically, you need to put it into a time management system. So if there's a task in an email, I'll take the task out and I'll put that into the time management system. I'll get more onto that in a second. And that is the process of actioning that email. From that point on, the email is no longer part of the process by which I know that I need to do the task, because the task has moved into my time management system. So I can reply to the person that sent an email saying it's going to get done, and then I'll move that email into the action folder. and it's out of the way. So this process of just clearing the inbox all the time, you know, the start of the day, you go through, you work out what's the task, put it into the time management system, and you're just simply just moving those emails out of the inbox into the actioned folder as soon as you've taken the action. And that's it. That's the simple approach. And it's taken me 39 years to get to the bottom of this. And obviously I wasn't working out time management systems, task management systems as a baby, but you get, you know, so many years I've had this inbox with thousands of unread emails and using it as a to-do list, just causing all kinds of problems. So brilliant that this is such an elegant, simple solution. And obviously there was a fair bit of work. I did this in the Christmas holiday, sort of getting these 6,000 emails that were in the inbox. Essentially, though, it was just a question of moving them all into an archive folder and kind of drawing a line. I did go right back through and try and deal with as many emails as possible in that had been left there. But, you know, it's really just a question of just getting everything out of the inbox so that you can rely on the inbox as a proper in tray. You know, if it's in there, it needs to be actioned and get out of there. And then you can keep this inbox zero process going and it works. So let's talk a little bit about the actual time management system. So after this point of taking the task out of an email and putting it into your time management system, from there, you want a system that makes sure it gets done every single time. I think this is the big problem a lot of times with a system where you'll try and categorize and prioritize tasks. The lower priority, lower urgency ones just get put to the bottom of the pile, and it just grows. So, you know, you're not doing jobs. People are waiting, and it's just not happening because something more urgent has always come in and taken its place. So this is where the genius of Mark Forster's approach comes into play. And he's basically spent his whole life designing time management systems, and there are lots and lots of different time management systems. When I first read Do It Tomorrow, that was my first introduction to Mark Forster's work, and I just thought that this was amazing. You know, I was reading this book and thinking this is absolutely incredible. There's so much wisdom in his writing in that book. And then I was kind of shocked to see that he'd superseded all of the ideas in this book with more unbelievably interesting ideas on time management. But that's not to say that things in that book are no longer relevant or useful. And I think as you sort of start exploring his work, you'll realize that there is merit in all of the different approaches. And, you know, everyone has their own slightly different way of thinking about things. And there are so many different ways that you can follow from his time management systems and experiment with different ones. He does encourage not changing time management systems too often. So actually what I've done, because I was looking at this and I was trying to sort of summarize the ideas for this video, I was wading through the forum on his website trying to get to the bottom of these time management systems, and there are so many. I actually started putting together a document summarizing the process for each one, because this doesn't exist. You know, you have to just search the forum and find these things. And I think I've got almost all of them. Someone actually replied with one that I'd missed, but I've got all of them organized in this document that I've put together with each process summarized and then a link off to read more about what Mark said about each one. So the one I'm actually using is one of his more recent ones, and it's called Rezero. So the way it works, you have a notebook. Obviously, these things are nicer to do in terms of using a real notebook. You can use them in a digital sort of process, but I think there is something particularly good about thinking in terms of pages of lists. And sometimes his systems actually very specifically require the use of a page. You know, this idea that you have a page of a certain number of tasks on there, and you're using the fact that you have so many pages to go back through, and if a page has one item on it left, you can't proceed to another page. And there's all kinds of mechanisms like that in some of his time management systems. Not Rezero though. Rezero is one of his absolutely simplest ideas, and I love it for that reason as well. So essentially, I read an email. If there's a task in there, I will put it into the list, and all that means is just literally writing that task down at the end of the list. Now, this business of putting it at the end of the list is quite key, because it has this sort of effect of immediately meaning it is surfaced as a potentially urgent item. So you don't have to worry about saying this is urgent, this is important. If a task in the email has come to you and it's urgent, put it at the end of the list and the system will take care of it. And I'll explain how that happens in a second. So you just keep adding your list, adding items to your list. It doesn't matter if they're urgent or you're not classifying them or prioritizing them. You just simply put them on the list based on this idea that if it's worth putting on the list, it should get done. If you think it shouldn't get done, don't put it on the list. Just reply to the email and say, this is not something that I'm going to do. That's it. I think that's actually quite an important part of this process. It's not good enough just to keep putting things on the list and think, oh, I'll get around to it one day, because it will break everything and destroy your productivity. You have to first and foremost be pretty ruthless with, is it a task that should get done? So once you've obviously, you have this every now and again, every time a task gets given to you, sometimes they will come through, obviously, instant message chat things, and you'll do the same thing, just move it into the task. I think there is merit to encouraging everyone to think of email as the way to give you new tasks because of this actioning process, obviously. But so once you've got your list, the way Rezero works, and this is just one approach, Mark Forster's got so many different ways of working these lists, and sometimes there are long lists, short lists, page breaks, and doing different things to the tasks and highlighting them. This version is super simple. So all you do when you're processing your list, when you're working out what to do, you start at the end, you read every single item that's unactioned, so it hasn't got a line through it. Once a task is done, you put a line through it. So you're reading through the tasks that need to be done in reverse order from the end. So this is this business of surfacing potentially urgent things first. So this very natural ability for making sure that urgent stuff does get done quicker than less urgent stuff. But this is a natural, intuitive process. Mark Forster talks a lot about using intuition and the way his time management systems work out. So on the face of it, you could just glance over this and think, what is going on? That's not profound. They are profound. When you realize the little psychological triggers that his mechanisms are making you go through to beat procrastination, to work on the things that you should be working on. And it's so clever what he's done. I'm his biggest fan. The absolute genius of a guy. So with Rezero, what you do is you're reading these tasks in reverse order. And with Rezero, the goal is to look for a task that has no resistance. Now, so all of his time management systems have these basic kind of algorithms. You're looking at the task and you're asking yourself a question, and this question differs from time management to time management system. With Rezero, you're looking for tasks that you have no resistance to. So that's all you're kind of asking: do I have resistance to this task? And this is where it gets really clever, because obviously if a task is super urgent, your mind is like, I have no resistance to that because it needs to get done now. That process is sort of telling you have no resistance to it because you have to do it. So you sort of drawn into doing it. So you put a dot next to it. So if you have no resistance to a task, you put a dot next to it. Obviously, if it's not urgent and it's not something you want to do for whatever reason, you have resistance to it. So you just move past it and you go on to another one. You just put dots next to all of the ones in reverse order that you have no resistance to. And you read the whole list. This is one of these key points with Rezero and a lot of his systems, is that you're reading the whole list. And again, on the face of it, it's like, okay, you just read the whole list. It's crucial that you read the whole list, because by coming back to the potential to doing a task frequently, you reduce the resistance to doing the task. Just that little bit of a refamiliarization of the task is enough to reduce resistance over time. And as you do other tasks on the list, the resistance to the remaining ones will get less because you've revisited them so often, and you see this process working in your brain as you do what you're supposed to do according to the rules of these systems, and you realize the genius of them. So once you've gone through your whole list and maybe you've dotted 3 or 4 tasks, you go back to the end and you work on the dotted ones in that order, and then you're done with that process. Obviously, during the course of this, what might happen is you get a new urgent task and it goes on the end. If it's really urgent, obviously you can just do it. You can do what you want to do, but essentially this mechanism of you put stuff into the list, you work the list, stuff gets done, everything gets done. And obviously if something is on there for ages and it's just constantly got resistance and never seems to be getting done, and this amazingly doesn't seem to happen this often with this list, but it's usually because it's written the wrong way. It may be that you've written too broad a task and you need to break it down, and Mark Forster talks a lot about how you write the task. If something is not getting done, rewrite the task, cross it out, rewrite it at the end in a different way, make it a smaller, like maybe instead of completing a whole task, it's start on a task, and then of course the resistance drops and you can get started. And again, one of these ideas that he talks about a lot is the importance of being able to start a task, because once you've spent a few minutes on a task, the resistance drops and you can progress. So all of these things that he works into the mechanisms in these time management systems. The whole thing is fascinating. This is just one very small, very simple system. I think it's one of his most successful for me. Obviously, you'll have your own way of working, and different time management systems will appeal to you for different reasons and different ways. So this is not about organizing your time, even though it's called time management. It's not about planning slots for different tasks in a calendar. This is about, so you have a time when you're starting work and then a time when you're finishing work. This is about knowing what to do in that period of time. So you're free to choose what you are working on in this window of time, and the time management system is the way in which you know what to work on and when. So it's not a calendar. It's not about sort of allocating time. I have other ideas on that, but that's not what this video is about. This is where you've got a certain you're working a full-time day on a job and you've got lots of tasks to do as part of that job. This is about knowing what to do and making sure that everything gets done. And these systems, I think, are the best way that I've found to achieve this. I think basically, if you want to learn more about Mark Forster, jump in, read the books. There's like 4 or 5 books I think he's done. They're all gold. They're all full of gold. And then jump into the forum. And this is where it gets a little bit hard work. The forum is on a really old website. I might approach him and see if he can use Setseed. That would be quite fun, actually. If we could switch it over to that. But yeah, basically, he's got an amazing community of followers who are all equally enthusiastic and understand where it's coming from and help refine these things, and you could just spend hours looking at these time management systems. But hopefully the document that I put together, and I'll link to that post that I put on his forum, kind of makes it a bit easier to start getting into his time management systems, because I think for somebody new to his work, it's just so daunting about knowing where to go. There are so many different systems. Yeah, so I would glance down all of the systems, sort of try one that takes your fancy, maybe try one of the simpler ones, and you'll start to see actually just the genius behind those decision-making processes that he puts into each of those systems. And let me know how you get on. Let me know how you approach time management and task management. I think what I've done here, I'm so pleased with the way it's been working this year. I don't think I've had to cross a task out that I haven't managed to action. And tasks I put on the list that I thought, I really don't want to do that for various reasons, just get done very soon. It's incredible how well these work at sort of making your brain get these things done. Yeah, fantastic. So hopefully that's been interesting for you. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.